This is Qesankh Maa Kheperu for Project Illuminated, and today I want to talk to you about Maat and the divine order. Now, for those of you who don't know, Maat is the goddess of truth, justice, and righteousness. She's the Kemetic deity, or the ancient Egyptian deity, which symbolizes the path of truth. Now, when you see her in her hieroglyph, in one hand she's holding a feather, and in another hand she's holding a heart, and she's weighing the two. The symbolism there is that your heart must weigh lighter than the feather, meaning you must be lighthearted. And when you die, you go before Ma'at to be judged, and this is very similar to the Christian Judgment Day. And in fact, in the Kemetic tradition, when you die, you don't go just before Ma'at, you go before Ma'at, Oser, who serves as the judge, Sebek, and Tahuti, the scribe, and at which point you'll recite the 42 negative confessions, which is very similar to the Christian 10 Commandments, but actually predates that. But what I want to talk to you today about specifically is not how the Kemetic tradition predates the Christian tradition, because there's a lot of documentation out there and you can go and read about that on your own. But what I'd like to talk about is the divine order. What is righteousness? And of course, going back to Ma'at is righteousness. The Kemetic people, in their wisdom, saw that what was important in life was that you lived out your destiny, not that you did good. From the time that we were children and raised up, we were taught to believe by our religious institutions that it was important that we do good. That if you do good, there's this reciprocal relationship where good things will happen to you in return. Now, I have a really big problem with that, because to me it seems like this whole system of order was put in place by a god who was a god of bribery, saying that if you want to get something, you have to give, and I just don't buy that, you know what I'm saying? And more specifically, too, this god is predicated upon capitalism. So if I want money, cars, beautiful wife, and all that, then I have to do good, and God will bribe me by giving me good things in order for me to do the righteous thing, and that doesn't jive with me at all. And if there is such a God who bases his love and divine order on bribery and this reciprocal relationship, then I think we're in trouble, as a people, because that's a God who has issues. So what we need to look at here is we have to ask this question then, all right? If we are living our lives, and from empirical experience, we see that those of us who do good don't necessarily have good things visited upon us. In fact, there are many instances that we'll see of people doing good and bad things happen to them. This is a common thing we see all the time. We'll see that there is a justice system that is predicated upon sexism, racism. How much money you have determines the type of legal defense that you'll have, and these are things that are unjust. So we have to look and say, well, if I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing, if I'm living a righteous life, but yet time and time again, I'll see those individuals who are doing evil get off and still live in their multi-million-dollar mansions in their jets, then what's going on here? There's something not right. Well, if we turn back to the religious leaders, they'll tell us, well, if you're not getting justice in this lifetime, then justice will prevail in the afterlife. So God will equal everything out when you die. And I don't buy that either. There's a big issue with that. So you're telling me that people on this physical level who are doing evil will live out their lives in a lap of luxury, riches, but they'll get what they deserve when they die. Meanwhile, the people who are poor, can't make ends meet, they're suffering from disease and oppression, have to endure that with the idea that when they die, and most likely it will not be a good death, then the good things will come their way. So we see that there is some type of fallacy there. This is not correct. But the Kemetic people in their infinite wisdom and knowledge left behind a legacy and tradition which explains this in a way that makes total sense. And what the Kemetic people were talking about in their hieroglyphs that we've interpreted was that it's not important for you as an individual to do good. In fact, the Kemetic people looked at everyone as a god. So we would say God man, God woman. And that there was almost this expectancy for you to do good. This is something that was a given. And you weren't applauded for doing the right thing. But what was important for you to do was to live out your destiny. Because as the Kemetic people saw it, an individual had a destiny. A race of people had a destiny. A nation has a destiny. The planet Earth has a destiny that must unfold, that we must live according to this destiny. In fact, the way the Kemetic people saw it was that truth or righteousness, let's say righteousness, living a righteous life, was not about doing good, but was more so about being in balance and in harmony with everything in the universe. That is key to understand that. Because if you look at the Chinese tradition of the I-Ching, which talks about the way. What is the way? The way is conducting yourself and acting yourself in the most appropriate way given the circumstances. In fact, the goddess Maat was also the goddess of relationships, of contextual thinking. So she was the measure of things. In order to understand what is the right thing to do in a given situation, you have to measure it and say, what is correct? In fact, if you look at the Christian tradition, going back to the Ten Commandments, those are a set of rules that are absolute. And those are not subject to change. But the Kemetic people saw that there has to be a means of measuring what is the right and applicable law to apply to an individual based on his or her individual circumstances. Hence, we bring in the god Tahuti, god of wisdom, because wisdom knows how to apply the law to best suit the situation. The law is not an absolute principle that is governed in every situation universally. Do you understand what I mean? You have to apply it according to specifics, and that is one of the errors that the Bible makes and many religious leaders makes in thinking that everything has to apply to everybody without change. Now, going back to what I was saying, the most important thing is for you to live your life in balance and harmony with the universe and for you to follow your destiny. So, if we look at modern physics, then we'll start to understand a little bit more what's going on here, because they are now validating what the Kemetic people already knew, that there are a number of dimensions. We understand there's anywhere from 11 to 21 dimensions. And there is also the multi-universe theory, which talks about that there are an infinite number of universes. So we know that there are more planet Earths out there and more copies of you out there, because we're living in a hologram. So if there are multiple versions of you living out multiple lives, then we start to understand things from a better perspective, meaning that what's going on in this existence is a playing out of a scenario. See, God, and the Kemetic people refer to God as Neter, wants to experience every possible scenario in every possible way. And the most expedient way of doing this is to create multiple versions of Earth and multiple universes that coexist in the same time and space, so that all of these experiences can happen simultaneously and immediately, so that Neter can gain experience from that. But there must be a order to all of this. So one of the first things that the Kemetic people said that Neter created was the foundation, and the foundation was Ma'at, the law, which governed everything, so that we understand that now there's this relationship now where it's you are living according to your destiny as it is unfolding. That is the most important thing that you must do. Not so much do good, that's a given, you should be doing good, but you have a specific role to play in this scenario on this planet Earth, which is one of an infinite number of planet Earths. So you are, let's say, in this drama or in this play, and you're playing the hero. It's important that you play out this role so that everyone else can play their role as well and gain spiritually from the experience. That's what is important. That's the balance and the divine order that we're looking for that explains everything. Now, if you understand that, then you'll know that no one is inherently evil, or no situation is inherently evil or inherently good, that all things are playing out according to the scenario within this universe. Because every universe has a scenario that has to play out, a destiny that has to unfold. So if all of this is playing out according to the way it's supposed to in this drama, then your role is very, very important, because without your role, others can't interact with you and grow from the experience. So then nothing, as I said before, is inherently good or inherently evil, that all things serve to further your development. With that in mind, then the bigger picture starts to take shape, and we start to understand things, and we gain a real insight as to what's going on. So, let me reiterate. It is not so much that you do good in this lifetime. Yes, everyone should be doing good. But it's more important for you to understand what is your spiritual destiny, be in a harmony with the universe, meaning be in harmony, being balanced. Because if someone is doing evil, we don't want to punish them. We want to bring them back into balance. That is what the ancient African traditions always sought to do. It was never about punishment. It was understanding, why did this individual commit these transgressions? What in society contributed to bringing about this person's behavior? And let us correct that within society so we bring about a more harmonious existence. That's what we're looking at. So the Christian tradition, or the traditions of these other religions, whether it be Islam, Judaism, Catholicism, which are predicated upon these very basic and childlike ideas of doing good to get good, or this reciprocal relationship where if you are living good, God will bribe you and give you money and riches to do good. We see that that's not correct. That's really not how the universe operates. The universe is always seeking to bring things back into balance and harmony through playing out a destiny or a drama that every individual has a role and function in, and that everything is relational. So the measure of if you are doing good is according to your destiny. Are you fulfilling your destiny? Are you fulfilling your role as the hero or the villain or the court jester or whatever? Because no matter what is happening to you, whether you're rich, poor, suffering from a disease, that is what is supposed to be happening within the confines of this universe, in this multiverse. Because every universe has its own destiny and set of experiences that must happen for everyone to grow and learn from the experience. Now, I've hoped I've shed some light, because this is a very deep concept, because it takes you apart from the idea of the childlike concept of doing good for the sake of getting something in return, to bring and elevate your consciousness to a higher level of understanding that good really is living in harmony and understanding the correct way that you must function within a given situation to bring about balance so that everyone can operate at their fullest and learn from the experience. So I want you to think about that. That is the foundation of Ma'at, which is the law, and we're talking about spiritual law, God's law, within the context of everything, and not man's law. This is Qesankh Maa Kheperu for Project Illuminated, and that's all for now.